The Backdoor GAA Podcast for 2023 is now brought to you by Steede Motor Group. For your personalised vehicle shopping experience, visit steedemotorgroup.ie. We are now delighted to announce our second sponsor of the podcast. Harper Finlay are a professional service recruitment company operating nationwide and are dedicated to helping people find their dream job.
So, joined now by Aonghus Callanan to look back at Galway's victory over Antrim at the weekend and look ahead to Galway's clash with Dublin. It's obviously a must-win. Henry Shefflin has said they're treating this like the Leinster semi-final and knockout game. It's pretty simple. It's really in Galway's own hands. Win this weekend, they're in the Leinster final. Dublin have to win by more than 4, and then hope Kilkenny win too. But obviously, Galway are going to want to get a win this weekend against Dublin. Aonghus, coming to you first, have you been able to get to many of the Galway senior hurler games throughout the Leinster Championship so far?
Yeah, I've been to 1 or 2. Went down to Kilkenny there, and been checking in on the GAA Go then for a few of the others. A few small kids there keeping me entertained at the weekend, so it can be difficult to get away. But certainly, it's great. Yeah, there's a lot of criticism of the GAA Go, but at least you get access to a number of games, and they're there on repeat as well, so you can go back and watch them again if you don't watch it at the time. So looking forward to the game this weekend. Hopefully, it's a nice day out in Croke Park for everybody. It's been a while since we got up there last year, so it's set up for a good competitive game for Galway, as you said.
What can we take from the Leinster Championship, Aonghus? Because obviously we played a good game with Kilkenny, you could say. Galway probably learned a lot from that. Wexford, a poor start, fed their way into it, never really looked like losing it too much in the second half. It's safe to say the other 2 games have been hammerings. Galway have dished out to Westmeath and Antrim. Overall, what are the management taking from the Leinster Championship so far, do you feel?
It's kind of very hard to get a read on Galway at the moment. As you said, Wexford were I was at that game. I thought they were very, very poor. Bar the few goals they got at the start, they really didn't put up much of a fight at all. Antrim game, it was a broad challenge match. 5-25 from play, 11 different scores, 50 scoring chances for Galway. There was numerous examples of loose play. So I don't think they would have learned a whole pile from the Antrim overseas games at all. It was good to give the younger guys championship experience, maybe get their debut under their belts. But as you said, the Kilkenny game really was where the main learnings were. And I think that, they'll take heart from the resilience and steel the lads showed. They were up, they were down, they were behind towards the end, and managed to pull something out of the fire then with 2 late great scores. So in terms of what they'll take from the league, I think it's from now on really, or from the championship, as you say, it's from now on really that Galway are going to start learning things. They have a good serious game this weekend, as you said. Hopefully get over that, and then you're moving on to a Leinster final back against Kilkenny, who you'd imagine will be going all out to win a second Leinster title in a row. So I feel, whilst I don't know the situation in terms of what training etc is going on, but I would feel that Galway are at a good advantage here in that I feel they could really train hard through them Antrim as Westmeath games. The risk.
Do you think they have been?
I don't know is the honest answer. I'd be surprised if they haven't really. Why not take advantage of that? The sort of low risk sort of games. You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. So they comfortably took care of both teams. If you look at Antrim, I think they totally wrote off that game against Galway. Really, coming down, they would have always targeted that their last game against Westmeath would have been the real one they needed to win to stay up. Now, conversely, it turned around that they went and bet Wexford, but it still doesn't really change the situation for Antrim. If they don't win the weekend, they're gone. So I feel, Galway will have learned very little from 2 games, reasonable amount of the Kilkenny game and maybe a small bit from the Wexford game. But now on, Galway will really start to test themselves and see where they're at.
Aonghus, when you were playing during your own career, you obviously didn't get the full experience that players are getting today of the Leinster Championship, the round robin system. But around this time of year, championship time, is it the most enjoyable part of the year now as a player from your own experience?
Absolutely. I mean, championships maybe started slightly later when I was involved. But you get out to Athenry there, the hot summer evenings, or into Pierce Stadium, Tex or whoever the kit man would be throwing out 60 or 70 new hurling balls, and you'd be going hard at it for the hour and a half, primarily all ball work, maybe a bit of a game, but absolutely, I mean, how would you not enjoy this time of year? Testing yourself. Nobody wants to be slogging around the pitch in January. You want to be out there hurling, pucking the ball, tackling, good hard drills, and playing games. So this time of the year, it's what guys train hard for. This is where they want to be fit. They want to be moving well, and the good weather, I suppose, helps in that as well.
Would your trainings get feisty around this time of year?
Absolutely. Depending on what way the management were approaching it, if it was towards the end of a week with a championship game at the weekend, you'd only be having that 15-20 minute blowout of a match. Things wouldn't usually really get that hot and heavy. But if a manager set out a stall and said, the weekend before a fairly big championship game, guys, this is when this is how we're going to pick the team. You'd have an A versus B. That's when you really would see the intensity ramp up and the hits, and the intensity and competitiveness would certainly come to the fore. So I particularly remember when we were under Lucknan, he used to play games where there was no ref and no rules. So they used to fairly boil over quite frequently.
Anything that stands out, like a certain encounter between players, or an encounter you had yourself?
There's one, all right. He won't like me for saying it now, but one of your previous guests there, Alan Kearns. So we were playing in Thurles the weekend after. So we went down to Thurles the week before to play a match, and it was a very hot day. And in the middle of the game anyway, I kind of, Alan was chasing the ball, and I forget who came out against him anyway, and sort of shouldered him over. And it didn't really look that bad at the time, and Alan was lying down on the ground for a long time, and Lucknan roars in. He says, Kearns, get up, you think you're having a suntan or something. And the whole place erupted with laughter. But poor Alan, did we know, was concussed and ended up being carted off to hospital. So we like to remind him of that one from time to time.
When you talk of them stories and them A versus B games and an intensity, and even there's stories like that stand out, when those stories cross your mind, is that when you kind of tend to miss the intercounty?
Oh yeah, well, not necessarily the trainings and the games. It's the big championship games. Going to Thurles, going to Croke Park, Limerick, wherever it is. The buzz of going out when you're going out for straight out before the game, going in for the photograph with the if there's a bit of music playing or whatever, getting into the warm up. The nerves building. That's when you really that's where you really want to be. And I suppose when you step away, they're the days you miss the most.
Would you get a buzz, Croker, Thurles, those days?
Going there now, is it?
No, like when you were playing.
Oh yeah, I mean you have to feed off that. That's what you're training hard for. Most of your trainings are behind closed doors. You don't have the adrenaline rush that comes with the noise, the crowd, and Galway fans, when you're running out for the first time, usually that's when the hairs start standing in the back of your neck, and you're getting excited about getting involved in the game.
You probably still even get a buzz going to those stadiums now as a supporter, I imagine too.
Absolutely. I mean, we don't get enough of them. Hopefully again we can get back up to having full houses in Thurles or Croke Park. Leinster final there should be a good Galway contingent at that, and hopefully if you move on to a quarter-final or semi-final from then. I mean, last year for the Limerick game, I thought there was a great Galway crowd, and the noise it generated. When Brian Concannon's goal or whatever went in that time, there was the crowd lifted the team, I would say.
And even we're talking about the team at the minute. Obviously, as we said, there's probably not a whole pile, but going back to the Antrim game, you said there 5:25 from play. I was putting this to Sarah Farrell last week about maybe it's been the opposition so far in the Leinster Championship, but is our biggest positive so far this year our ability to create goals? Because in the past, Galway have predominantly been scoring points, but at the minute there does seem to be an ability in this Galway side to put away goals now.
Yeah. As I said, it's kind of hard to read with the quality of opposition. How many goals we score against Kenny? Was it one? Brian's goal. So the proof is in the pudding, and going forward, I think Galway won another Ireland without scoring a goal. I don't think it's the be all and end all as it used to be. I mean, if you look at the Limerick game at the weekend, don't think they scored a goal. So.
Is there still a thing though if you're playing top side that you need to be putting a few away?
I think it's more about at the moment your scoring efficiency.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. You might get one goal or two goals, but you're not going to score 5 goals or unlikely to score 5 goals against the top sides. Whether you're converting the chances that you create, that's the main key indicator really of how the team is performing on the scoreboard wise. You need to be up on that 60-70% shooting efficiency. You look at the game last year, again, going back to the Limerick game, couple of chances coming down the stretch. Yeah. You bank on guys in some situations to be scoring them, and they weren't. So, and that's ultimately what cost them. So, I mean, I think at the end of the day, yes, it's great to be scoring goals, but I'd more be looking at our scoring efficiency and are we putting away the chances, primarily points, that we're getting.
And now, like, just looking at the Antrim game, obviously, we started slowly, you could say. Colin Cunning puts away a penalty in the first minute. But then after that, it's safe to say one-way traffic, really. Can Shefflin take something away from that game, or is it just routine victory, Dublin?
I think it's routine victory, Paul.
Yes.
The quality... there was very good patches of play by Galway, and I think they'll try and focus in on that. But conversely, then there was a lot of guys standing up, getting blocked down, a lot of poor touches. Lads were able to go back and get their second touch again. There's no benefit to a team in playing teams that you're going to beat by 30-40 points 2 weeks in a row. It's just going to slow down everyone's standard, and I think the challenge for the management team will be, keeping guys' intensity up and keeping their speed of play up, because there's certainly bigger challenges coming down the tracks that you need to be a lot more sharper and, a lot more intense in your play going forward.
Obviously, when you're looking at that game, a few injury concerns have come out of that game. I've been looking into to see what the scenario has been. Word on the street is Fintan Burke with his head injury is going to be okay. It was more so just get him off the pitch, a precaution to be taken. But it does look like the Cathal Mannion and Brian Callanan are significant concerns. It's hard to know what degree of concern they are this weekend, but they are injury concerns.
Yeah, they're both huge losses to Galway. I mean, in the last 2 or 3 years.
Was that even out?
Against Dublin?
Yeah. Or is there still too much?
I think I'd hope that Galway still have enough to take care of Dublin. Dublin are a good side. They're very strong down the middle. Donald Burke seems to be their scorer in chief. Galway will obviously need to count for him. And Owen O'Donnell in the back line is having a great year, really. So I think the two guys are definitely a loss, absolutely. They're nailed on starters, you could argue. And you'd hope that come the Leinster final, they're back and ready, because they offer a huge amount to the team, particularly Brian. I think the way he's been playing at the moment, not just his own scoring, but the assists and the space he creates for Conor and other forwards inside. So yes, they're huge losses. Does it even it up? It certainly tips the scales a bit closer, but I feel you'd hope that even considering that Dublin have a huge insight into Galway, but you'd hope that Galway's quality will shine through.
You actually made the point there, huge insight. It was something I was going to touch on later on, but I'll touch on it now since you did mention it. Micheal Donoghue, Noel Larkin, Franny Ford, I think Brendan Egan's involved as well in the strength and conditioning as well with Dublin. What factor can that play this weekend?
And Derek Ford as well. He took another Galway man up with him. But look, it's a huge bonus to Dublin. Obviously, he knows 90% of these Galway players inside out. He knows their strengths, their weaknesses, how they play. But at the end of the day, that can only offer the guys so much in terms of the way they set up. The lads aren't hurling; they're playing against Dublin hurlers. I think Galway backs will really, should come out on top in terms of the quality of Dublin forwards. You'd hope that Galway defence will be strong and give a good platform to the guys up front. But it'd be interesting to see, it might expose some of Galway's weaknesses. We'd have to see how he sets up the guys that he targets, the style of play they approach. So it's going to be intriguing to see what happens.
Does it play on the players' minds, knowing that this management team were over them for so long? They know their personalities. There's probably still a friendship there between most of that management team and the players. Does that play on the players' minds at all, do you think?
I don't think it affects their performance really. Once you go inside the white lines, you're not thinking who the opposition manager is really, it might actually even give guys some extra motivation, that if it was some particular player who maybe didn't get on with him or, doesn't want him to have the one up over them after the game. So I don't think it has a huge effect on the guys playing. It's 4 years ago now since he was manager. Typically when a manager steps away, he wouldn't maintain that much contact with guys. He might be one or two lads he'd sort of remain friendly with, but most guys, that's sort of it once the manager leaves. So I don't think there's going to be guys going soft on Dublin just because Micheal's over them,
Micheal and Franny and Noel and these lads, they're not going to say it, but it's a difficult situation for them this weekend.
I suppose it is, but I suppose it's lucky enough for them. It's not necessarily a knockout game, so if they do beat Galway, they're not going to be out of the championship. They're fantastic Galway men. They gave Galway the greatest days of their hurling lives. A lot of these players, I don't think it's difficult for them. They're professional guys. They have a job to do. They've invested a huge amount going up and down to Dublin, 3-4 times a week. So I don't see it being that difficult for them, as I said, because it's not a knockout game really. They're more focused on getting a performance from their own team, I would imagine.
And from knowing the guys, from knowing Micheal and these guys, are you thinking straight away what kind of way they're going to set up, or is it very much going to be kind of just figure it out when the match is on? Because
Dublin have a style of play established. You know what I mean? I don't think they're going to veer away from that. They might tinker it slightly to try and negate some of Galway's things in terms of where their sweeper setups, etc. But
is there
Dublin are not going to change dramatically their style of play to play Galway.
Is there a thing they're going to try and drag out this Galway backline, move them around the place? Do you think that's what they're going to try and do? Because
I definitely do. I think that they play a sort of a running game. I think they're going to target midfield. They're going to try and pull the Galway backs. They're going to try. He'd know Dahi, Garroge, what their strengths are. I could see they're going to try and do something with them, shift them around. Pádraig Mannion, I can see it will be chasing a lot of guys around the place. I don't see his man standing toe to toe beside him. And they'll keep it very compact at the back. They'll see the danger that Conor Whelan possesses. Even again there the weekend, the goals he was getting. And where I suppose where to shut down the supply from and target that. I wouldn't see it that they play sort of the way Clare are playing at the moment, where essentially it's a full court press all the way up the field. I see, they might concede the puckouts to one or two guys and try and keep the score down, I would imagine.
Conor Burke is going to sit in that role. You'd imagine they haven't really changed him for much. He's sat against Kilkenny. He's sat in most of the games, and he does play that role very well for Dublin too.
Yeah, he's a very good hurler. He's a young guy. Seems to have come on the scene the last few years. And as I said, Dublin are very strong down the middle. Try and flitter a few passes around and get the ball to Donal, get the ball to the shooters, and then they're off. You know what I mean? It'll be interesting to see. All right, how the guys that know Galway inside out set up, and are they able to stifle Galway's creativity up front?
So I'm just making sure now I have this right, Aonghus. So if Galway don't lose by more than 4, they're in the Leinster final.
Yes, that's my understanding.
Yeah. No, just want to make sure that's clear now, just with the permutations and everything. And as well for Galway, people might feel like this Dublin team, it's probably hard to know where they're at. But at the same time, for a lot of this Galway group, Dublin knocked them out of the championship in Parnell Park in 19. Then in 21, Dublin bet them in the Leinster semi-final in Croke Park. So they're probably, for the more experienced players in this group, they probably feel like they do owe Dublin one here.
Yeah, there's certainly no fear there, I would imagine. The Dublin guys have trained hard. They were away on a training camp. They went to Portugal for a week. They have a lot invested in this championship already. I feel they were disappointed with the result in Antrim, but ultimately they got something out of it after a poor start. They defeated Wexford in a good game in Croke Park. Reasonably competitive against Kilkenny. So they'll want to push on here now. This is their opportunity. They want to get, if guys want to get to a Leinster final, they have to win the game. So I don't see any reason for them to sit back. They're not saving themselves for anything. They're still going to be in the same position if they lose the game. So why not go all out to get to a Leinster final from their point of view? So
and Galway, I feel like they owe them one, particularly when you consider that we have come up short in previous years to Dublin.
Yeah, you'd imagine that there might be a bit between the teeth and some of the Galway guys in that regard, but you can't be focusing on that either. It's about your own performance. What has happened with oppositions in the past might give you a slight edge, but certainly not going to win you the game. It's about your performance and how you approach the game and what your attitude is going into it.
Before we get into teams, matchups and everything, how do you feel about the game being in Croke Park? Because it's safe to say most of this football crowd aren't going to be in from the start for this Galway Dublin game. Like, even last year, the Leinster final Galway and Kilkenny, there wasn't as many as you expect, and the atmosphere was maybe a bit flat early on. Like, how do you feel about Galway Dublin being in Croke Park? I know it's obviously Dublin's home venue that they've chosen, but the game being in Croke Park, how do you feel?
As a supporter, probably, a small bit disappointed. The more intimate venues certainly lead to a better atmosphere. Yeah. I know that if it was in Parnell Park, it would probably be a sellout. Tight field.
It's a strange one to know why they've moved from Parnell Park, really. It was such a fortress.
I don't know either. As a player, I'd imagine the lads are delighted that it's not in Parnell Park, and I'm happy that it's in Croke Park. How often a year do you get to play in Croke Park? 2-3 times a year, max. Some of these guys, Declan McLaughlin, a few of those, might have never played a senior game in Croke Park. So I think from a supporter's point of view, disappointed. From a player's point of view, I'd say they're more than happy that this game is in Croke Park, because it'll tee them up again nicely for hopefully a Leinster final. Quarterfinals are usually down in Thurles or whatever, but semi-finals and finals will certainly be back up in HQ.
Declan McLaughlin, you mentioned him there, really impressive campaign so far. 4 points from play the last day against Antrim. Going on that performance, Declan McLaughlin scores 4 points, does really well. Is he a player who has to keep his spot based on that performance for the weekend?
You'd imagine, any of the games he's been involved with, he's made a significant contribution. You saw what he did against Kilkenny. If Brian Callanan is still missing, there's certainly a spot available there. And I suppose Henry would be true to the mantra. I suppose if a guy is performing and training, he keeps his jersey. So there's no reason why he won't be thrown in at the weekend, and he'll get a good test in the Dublin full backline.
Yeah, no, it's a great occasion, and it's great to see how he's developed. Just looking at that Galway team that played the last day against Antrim, obviously we mentioned Brian Callanan didn't play the last day. He's a doubt. Paul Mannion's a doubt too. Other than that, would you see Henry sticking with more or less the same team? Just to refresh you with the team that day that started against Antrim was Aidan Murphy, Jack Grealish, Garrett McInerney, Darren Morrissey, Pork Mannion, Dahi Burke, Fintan Burke, Joseph Cooney, Ronan Glennon, Conor Cooney, Evan Nyland, Colin Mannion, Kevin Cooney, Conor Whelan, Declan McLaughlin. Would you see more or less sticking with the same unless there's an enforced change with Colin Mannion?
Yeah. I mean, they've shown that really throughout once we got towards the latter stage of the league, it seemed to be a very consistent selection. There was only either a change or two, and in most cases it might have been enforced or whatever. Certainly all the backline there are prime positions. Maybe TJ might be pushing hard, I would imagine, to try and get in there.
That's good. That's a very open and competitive at the minute. I've really been saying it every week on the podcast. It's just between, I suppose, Jack Grealish, Darren and TJ.
Yeah, it certainly is. We don't see what's happening in training, but it's great to have those options. It's a 20-man game now, so you never know what's going to happen, whether you'll need cover. So it's great that we have it. And the midfield there, Joseph Cooney seems to be playing is better with age. He's getting really at the moment. So certainly him and Ronan, or you have Tom Monaghan, or you have Keenan. So there's good options there. And then you're also going to have to find somebody at half forward now anyway if Cahill is gone.
Is Joseph Cooney though perfect for that role? Because maybe if you look at it, we might have been a bit light, but does Joseph Cooney bring that physicality that maybe some people could argue that we need in the middle third?
He does. I'd kind of, unlike most other fellas who would be stuck in one position, I'd be inclined to see Joe being used in a horses for courses approach. There might be days he's needed wing back when the opposition has a towering influence there. There might be times he's needed in half forward line when the opposition have a Jeremy Burns or a Kyle Hayes or somebody who you need somebody with a bit of speed and strength to try and keep a hold of. So I wouldn't be nailing him down as midfield. I think he's more of a utility for us there, and strategically placed depending on who the opposition is.
You could easily see the next day if calls out, Tom Monaghan could easily go midfield, and we could see Joseph deployed maybe to wing forward again. Because as you mentioned, if you are losing call, obviously you have Conor Cooney and Evan Nyland there, but they might feel that they could need another ball winner there against Dublin, particularly with how strong Dublin are defensively.
Yeah. I mean, you look at most of the teams nowadays that are really going for height and strength in terms of their half forward line and athletic ability. So Joe certainly fits them categories anyway, along with his hurling skills.
Just as well, two players we didn't see throughout the league that actually came on the last day against Antrim. Adrian Toohey made his return. We haven't seen him in a Galway jersey for quite a while. He came on the last day, but a player as well who starred throughout the club championship for Loughrea. Craig Lally was actually on one of the first podcasts this year, and he said he wanted to see Jamie Ryan play for Galway. And Jamie Ryan has come on the last day, and he's a player who gives a different dimension to Galway as well.
Yeah, as you said that, we played a league game against Loughrea there a couple of weeks back, and he was very impressive. He definitely stood out as being of inter-county standard. So he hasn't really got much of a run with Galway. whether that's by design or through injuries or
I
whatever.
think there
So
was a thumb injury there at the start of the year or something that kind of held him back a bit.
no, but he's lightning speed, electric pace. So he's certainly a sort of different dynamic that you could throw in. Maybe he might start him at the weekend. You just don't know.
Yeah.
But look, at Jamie certainly has the potential from what we've seen so far to aid Galway and to be a huge influence in terms of the 20-man selection for who plays in each day.
This Dublin game I mentioned at the outset, that Henry Shefflin has said they're treating this like a knockout game, and I presume you see Galway going all out from the start. Like you said at the start of the year when we had you on one of the first podcasts of the year with Kevin Brady, you said at the start of the year they have the players, they have the management, there's no excuses, they can win the All-Ireland. Are you still along those lines?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying they're going to win. I'm saying they have the ability to win.
Yeah.
If they can keep their main guys injury free, they have the experienced backroom team. They have the full setup. They have the experience of last year. So, they showed against Wexford how comfortable they were, managed to claw back against Kilkenny. I mean, Kilkenny are top 3 or 4 side. As we spoke about there earlier, the lads in Munster are knocking lumps out of each other there. So, they'll be well worn down by the time the quarterfinals and semi-finals come along. So it's set up for Galway. You know what I mean? Let's hopefully get over Dublin at the weekend, have a right crack of the Leinster final, and onwards and upwards. Then from that if you can keep your main guys injury free, hopefully learn the lessons from last year, Galway are in with a right shout. Absolutely.
Do we really don't need? As you said, you still have areas where you're maybe just a bit unsure about Galway, obviously because of the opposition and the nature of some of those victories. But do we need, as much as we want to see the result this weekend, but do we need to see a really, really impressive performance here this weekend?
Do we need it? We need a win. Somebody said to me the last day in the Galway club scene, they said, you don't want to be peaking now till August. So, I mean, do Galway want to be peaking now and performing at the very best? It's difficult to time your run. I mean, look at Limerick in the league final and what's happened since then. So, yes, a performance would be great. I don't think Galway want to be hitting top gear either. So it's just about, them incremental gains each week, making sure your KPIs have been hit, and I suppose building towards quarterfinal, semi-final, final when you really want to deliver your best performances.
What do you want to see this weekend from them?
Well, like you'd want to see that the style of play, that Galway are tight and secure at the back, that their scoring efficiencies is up, they're working hard. That Dublin, they're able to, I suppose, tactically work around Dublin, because I feel Dublin are quite a tactical side, the way they set up. So we want to see, good, intense, competitive hurling from Galway, and that they're able to I suppose, deal with whatever Dublin throws at them. The
matchups this weekend, don't forget as well, this game's on RTE at the weekend as well. It'll be Galway's second time live in the Leinster Championship this year, if you can't make the trip to Croker at the weekend. But matchups, Owen O'Donnell and Conor Whelan's worth the entry fee alone for this.
Yeah, there's a fair amount of brawn between the two of them now. I can see them hopping off each other for a good 70 minutes. But I mean, Galway might deploy Conor Whelan centre forward, and we mightn't see that. But look at that. That's a relish. You'd relish that challenge coming up between the two guys. It's going to be an exciting battle if it transpires that way. And two guys who don't back down anyway, certainly.
They're really similar in physique as well, the two of them, aren't they? Even you could see Owen O'Donnell the last day when he got the ball driving forward. He got a point against Kilkenny at the end, and this is where, if Owen O'Donnell decides to go forward and Conor Whelan's on him, it will be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you saw with Hugh Lawler and Conor Whelan as well. It's a really tough, competitive battle between the two guys. And if the two of them are marking each other, I'm not so sure they will be. But if they are, I think it'll be a great contest.
Yeah, Paddy Smith as well done a fantastic job on TJ Reid there at the weekend. He's another tight, tenacious man maker, probably very underrated. You have Dara Gray as well in the half back line, really impressive. Conor Burke at 6. But the strongest area of that Dublin team is probably the half forward line of Donald Burke, Danny Sutcliffe, Keane Boland. We talked about Dublin wanting to move it around. All those three players are athletically quick, loads of hurling in them, and that's probably an area where Dublin are targeting, because it's safe to say it is their strongest line.
Yeah, I mean, Donald Burke will certainly take watching. He's right up there at the moment in terms of the top 5 hurlers in the country. I think his scoring, his influence from play is cannot be understated. He's really carrying Dublin in a good few games. Be very interesting to see where they deploy him. Will they put him in centre forward on Dye? Will they put him on Pádraig Mannion? Doubt it. Or will they put him in the corner and bring him out? If he's inside, would Galway decide to put Jack Grealish on him just to stick to him?
Will Galway look to put someone on him from the outset? Is he a player that you just have to?
I think he is. I think he is. His scoring. You look against Kilkenny. Kilkenny deployed somebody on him. That followed him around all day, and I think most teams are having to do that now because of the influence he's having. I mean, Wexford didn't really tie him down, and he essentially, ended up carrying them over the line.
Who's going to go on him then, Aonghus?
It depends where he's playing. If he's in the forward line, I'd probably say they put Jack on him. If he's in the half forward line, if Finton is fit, maybe might to get him to cover him. I don't know. Will they have Dahi traipsing around Croke Park after him? It's unlikely. I think they'd like Dahi to hold the middle, stop runs down through the middle, and be solid. At centre back.
Yeah, because Donald Burke really he moves all around the place. Like, he works so hard off the ball as well as on the ball, and I don't think you'd see Dahi really moving from that 6th position if that's where he plays. At the weekend, obviously him and Mark, there can be a bit of interchange there, as we've mentioned. You've mentioned here you want to see work rate. You just want to see incremental improvements this weekend, but where will Galway hold the advantage in this, and eventually what we're hoping here is wear Dublin down?
I'd hope that the Galway's backs, the back 6 and midfield and the 2 half forwards working hard, that they will hold a good advantage over the Dublin backs, keep them at bay, and the Galway will be able to work enough scores. Then, with a sweeper that Dublin will deploy, you can't be just lamping ball down the field. You have to be strategic with it. I think Galway will try and, pick points from out the field, especially in Croke Park. So, I'd hope the backs would set a good platform, and then that Galway will be able to pick off enough of scores then to stay ahead,
Is there, how much, or how do you see Galway winning this game by on Sunday?
We haven't looked at what the weather is like, but you'd imagine a 5-6 point win would be fairly comfortable enough. Dublin will be competitive, as you said. Yes, the football game after, but if Dublin try and keep in the game and keep it low scoring, that football crowd will be in towards the second half, and they'll get that lift, going down the stretch. So, I suppose there hasn't been that many double headers of the Dublin hurlers and footballers in Croke Park. So, the guys might come in out of curiosity and then get enthralled into the game of hurling. So, you'd hope that Galway have put the game to bed with 15-20 minutes to go, and that will negate whatever impact that crowd coming in will have.
Do Galway hold an advantage in it that, like, if you consider Galway's inside forward line contribute a massive amount of scores, But when you look at Dublin's inside forward line, they scored 1 point against Kilkenny. Is that where the advantage and probably difference is?
Well, like I said, you know, the Galway backs, they're going to set the platform, I think, in this game. I could be wrong, but I don't see Galway coming in scoring 5 goals against a team that has 7 defenders set up. You know, they're going to have to be picking out the scores from out the field, working hard for their scores, you know, and Evan will obviously slot the frees in most cases. So, I suppose to answer your question, Galway certainly have an advantage, you'd hope, in their backs against the Dublin forwards. So that'll set the platform.
And then hopefully all goes well this weekend, set up for Galway Kilkenny again.
I think Galway just get over this weekend first, but you'd hope that we get another crack at Kilkenny in Croke Park. I think both teams will have come on a lot since that first game. I think, you know, there was a lot of mistakes, there was a lot of loose play in that, and I think if we get to a Leinster final, that'll focus the minds, and there'll be more of a championship feel about it.
Just on it as well, Aonghus, before we finish up, we were talking about the Galway Miners off air. A terrific performance again against Cork, but I've just been so impressed with the way they've been dismantling teams this year.
Yeah, I mean, they have a dream team management set up there. So look, at the guys seem to be, I suppose, number one, physically well developed for 17-year-olds as much as you can be. Their hurling is very crisp, very sharp, and you know, they're tactically very astute and set up to dismantle teams. I think Clare are quite similar. They seem to be showing the same kind of traits. So I think it'll be a very interesting final. You know, at the end of the day, it's not the be all and end all for these players. It's more about development. But it's nice to get silverware as well. But you know, you'd hope that you get the 2 or 3 guys from that towards a senior team. You know, it goes without mentioning, Aaron Ireland obviously shows huge potential.
Not putting pressure on Aaron Ireland now, Antrim, because there's huge expectation. But for you, how good can this guy be?
I can only go with what other guys are telling me, or go off what other guys are telling me. Any of the fellas I've been talking to about him have said he certainly has the potential to be the real deal. But not every guy that had potential fulfilled it. So I think we should just leave him as he is, let him keep doing what he's doing. Make sure I'm sure he's on the right strength and conditioning program. He'll be piggybacking on what the brother is doing, trying to beat him. So you can be sure that he's a competitive guy, and just give him the space to develop, not to be blowing him up too much or knocking him down too much either. To allow him to you know, enjoy his hurling, and he's not going to be a senior in the next 2 or 3 years. It's about development for the future.
What were you thinking the last day when you see young Rabbit with the glove and he's talking to his Joes? What memories does that bring back for you?
Not great ones whenever I played against him in the club anyway, but you look at it's great to see you know, former players, siblings making the breakthrough. You know, Garage McInerney's, you know, the guys like that whose parents would have, I suppose, you know, been successful. It's not that easy for their siblings to follow up on that. There can be sometimes an unrealistic expectation just because you're related to a particular past player. So, you know, again, he just needs to be left with the space to develop. But he, you know, he has great potential, and sort of remind you a tiny bit of Johnny Glynn, the way he goes on, his ball winging abilities. So it's probably something that's not overly present in Galway, that guys like that. So you'd hope, again, like, he's given the space to develop and you know, enjoys what he's doing at the moment, and I suppose fulfills the potential that he shows at the moment.
Yeah, no, it's Brian Callanan as well from Antrim inside in that forward line. He's had some really good performances. There's a really good inside line there. But just we talk obviously about that dream team of management team. You look at it, Fergal Healy manager, selectors, James Cahill, Joe Canning, Mark Kearns, Porrick Duddy, Eamon Cleary. A lot of those players obviously would have seen a lot of this management team either play a club hurling or county hurling, and would have been probably some of their idols growing up. But how much of an influence is that having on the players, do you feel?
I'm sure it's only of positive benefit, and influence. The guys are hugely experienced, and Joe there's nothing that Joe doesn't know, and he can impart to any of the forwards there. Mark Kearns has been through it. He's been hugely involved in Clarebridge in terms of their youth development, so he can bring that to the table. Eamon Cleary has vast experience. He's trained senior teams in Galway. Been hugely involved with Sarsfields. Then you have Fergal, obviously, is training every team in Crowell going. So, the guys have the best of the best there, and also their strength and conditioning guy they have involved as well. So, I mean, it's a great asset to the players that any of the fellas that are talking to them, they can turn around and say, well, what does this fella know? He doesn't know what he's talking about. Every one of them guys has, bought the t-shirt and been there and done that. So they're hugely respected. And I think that the players can, I suppose, take solace in that the guys they have involved with them are real, genuine, smart, intelligent guys who know what they're talking about.
Yeah, that game was obviously Sunday week against Clare. It's part of a double header. That game will be taking place at 1, and then you have Cork and Offaly in the under 20 at 3 o'clock. I'd encourage everyone to get tickets as soon as they can if they're half thinking of going, because there's going to be a great crowd in Thurles, because we've seen the support Offaly have brought. And just finally, Offaly, I think 15 of that minor team are gone through to under 20. It's a great minor team at the minute, but it's about getting as much players as you can from this minor team into Brian Hanley's under 20 setup then.
Absolutely, you'd hope that everybody, transfers through, but invariably they don't. You'll find there's always a fall off for a variety of different reasons. Guys go away, they go to college, they lose interest. They're maybe on the verges of making it anyway. But the more guys that can make it, the more chance you have of transferring them then to the senior team, obviously. So I suppose shouldn't be taken as a given that it's a merry-go-round, and once you're on all the way around. It's not the way it should work. I think there needs to be incentive for guys that don't make it as well to be brought into it. There's plenty of guys who made great seniors that never made any minor panels. So Offaly seem to have a great template at the moment throughout their codes, and it's fair dues to them. They were at a low ebb there a year or 2 ago or 2 years ago, and now their minors and under 20s are really I suppose bringing life back into their supporters, and as you said, they're fairly getting on the bandwagon. As you said, that there'll be a huge crowd down in Thurles for that game, I would imagine.
Yeah, no, that double header is going to be probably one of the moments in the summer this year in the Hurling Championship. So definitely an occasion to look forward to. That is all on our show for today. As I said, Galway face Dublin, 2 o'clock Sunday in Croke Park, game on RT. And if you're listening, if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's been great views and great content with all the various guests over the last few months. Aonghus, thanks a million for coming on.
Oh, no problem.
The Backdoor GAA Podcast for 2023 is now brought to you by Steede Motor Group. For your personalised vehicle shopping experience, visit steedemotorgroup.ie. We are now delighted to announce our second sponsor of the podcast. Harper Finlay are a professional service recruitment company operating nationwide and are dedicated to helping people find their dream job.